Right, this is another probably 10-15 minute long blog post on my second draft of the script. You can see it here in all its typed out glory. I'll be posting a PDF copy of the script on the blog, so if you want to take a proper look at that, things you should be able to if you just look for a blog post that's titled. I'll probably post it on the same one as this, to be honest. So yeah. As I mentioned last time, the format that this will take is I'm going to read through the script as it's going and stuff like that, and then where I've changed something, or maybe at the end of every scene or something like that, I'll just talk about decisions I've made, why I've made them, why I've changed lines and stuff like that accordingly. So without further ado, here's scene 1, opening. A perfectly formed croissant sits in the centre of an oven. The door opens and Mark, complete with oven gloves and apron, carefully removes the pastry from the rack and sets it down carefully on a pristine plate. Classical music plays in the background. The scene is the very picture of domestic bliss. Mark turns from the croissant to begin polishing his knife. While his back is turned, we see movement and scuttling towards his precious meal. Suddenly, with a primordial screech, Tony leaps up and smashes the croissant and plate to the floor, scuttling back upstairs on all fours like some enormous insect. Mark turns, surveying the scene in abject shock, followed by unbridled anger. Scene 2. We need to talk about Tony. Scene opens with Mark, Paul and Luke sitting in the lounge. Luke and Paul are glued to the TV screen, playing Xbox together and paying little attention to Mark, who clearly has something on his mind. Mark. Guys, is it just me or has Tony been acting weird lately? Paul responds without taking his eyes off the screen. Weird how, Mark? As in fucking mental, Paul? Oh yeah, he was up all last night screaming. What? Oh, screaming, I don't know, something about demons, the rest was just gibberish followed by the smell of burnt hair. And you neglected to mention this to anyone. I told Luke. Luke, care to chime in here? Right, that's, I'll stop midway through the scene, that's something I've added. As I mentioned with Paul's character, I wanted a little bit of aggression in him and stuff like that, and I thought, while that doesn't necessarily come across as much as it should, I've put a certain amount of passive aggression between him and Mark. Originally it was just, guys, is it just me who's Tony been acting weird lately? Weird how? As in fucking mental. Oh yeah, he was up all last night screaming. It's just kind of, it's all a bit one note and there wasn't a great deal of personality in it. So by, literally, like, it actually came about by accident because I realised that at no point in the script is anyone's names mentioned other than Luke and Tony. So obviously it would be, we need to get character names in, so I just thought, where can I possibly put in Mark's name and Paul's name? Where will it sound normal that we're addressing, that someone's addressing people? So I put it in on the first line, and it kind of changed the inflection of things, like by changing it to, oh, weird how, Mark, and then as in fucking mental, Paul, kind of adds this certain, adds a bit of, yeah, viciousness in there. Like there's already tenseness between the two characters, and that's kind of slightly more compelling for the viewer and stuff like that. So yeah, that's one of the changes I've made. Replaced sound that sounded like a coffee maker to the smell something that smelled like burnt hair, because it just, coffee makers, it's a bit wordy and it's not really worth it as a gag. So yeah, burnt hair, smell. Sulphur, something like that. It's a gag about hell, that kind of thing. Right. Luke, care to chime in here? That's Mark. Luke, in the same manner as Paul, responds to Mark without taking his eyes off the screen. Yeah, he was screaming and shit, something about demons, and then he started talking gibberish, and then there was a smell that smelled like burnt hair. So that's Luke being simple, repeating what Paul said. Mark, and you've got nothing else to add? Luke shrugs, still not taking his eyes off the screen. Mark, does none of this strike you guys as odd? Luke, I don't know, maybe. Either way, who cares? Tony's a prick. The gang all look between each other, taking their eyes off the screen for the first time since the scene began. They nod, all in concurrence regarding Tony's prickishness. Paul, although, now you mention it, things have been a little odd lately. Weird stuff going on in the house. Cuts to a flashback of Paul walking past the fridge, which sounds like it's been filled with hundreds of locusts. He reacts with confusion, followed by apathy. So that's a little aside thing. It just breaks up the pace of the scene and stuff like that, and we get to see something that's going on. Luke, actually, Yeah, you're right. I went to do a piss the other day and the toilet water was red. This is all completely new, actually, I think, from the last one. Mark, it bothers me that you didn't tell anyone about this. Besides, how are you not in the least bit concerned your urine was red? It sounded like you were pissing blood, man. Luke, no, it was already there before I went. Now you mention it, though, it did look a lot like blood. Mark, so you saw a toilet bowl full of blood and you just left it? Because I'm imagining a lot of this kind of hand movements and mannerisms and stuff like that in Mark. Like he spells out every single comma and bullet point in his sentence. And it's, I think it's kind of, I'll be talking to the actor about that to try and get that across, to get that sort of meticulous kind of, this is all very specific way that Mark actually is as a character. And right. So you saw a toilet bowl full of blood and you just left it, Luke. Still there, creeped me out a little, so I just went in the kitchen sink. For fuck's sake, Luke. Paul. So to recap, Tony's acting weird and he could be pissing blood. Maybe a syphilis. I hear that shit sends you mental. Do you think we should mention something? And then Luke. Fuck him. Paul. Yeah, you're right, he is a prick. This is, I've amended this as well. This is a more recent amendment, so I'll just reread that with the added bit that I've got put in. And it's, this is something I'm not too sure if it works, so it's not necessarily in the final draft. I'll add it in on a take and then maybe get rid of it if it isn't really quite right. But it's more of that trying to push Paul's aggressiveness and stuff. So, Paul. So to recap, Tony's acting weird and he could be pissing blood. Maybe it's syphilis. I hear that shit sends you mental. Do you think we should mention something? In fact, you know what? Fuck him. Prick wouldn't let me milk the other day. He can rot his brain and dick off for all I care. And then Luke. Yeah, you're right. He is a prick. Like, so it's kind of a gag like Luke's offsetting Paul's natural viciousness and meanness, but I'm not sure if it comes across as off-tone and we need more of a build-up for Paul being a dick, basically. Okay. The gang once again concur on the matter. Mark gets up to grab some food from the kitchen cupboard. He casually opens the cupboard door to find all of his food covered in mould and flies. So there's little gags in there about basically the 10 plagues of Egypt kind of thing. That's what I've been playing on. Like water turning into blood is the blood in the toilet. Food rotting and everything like that is. I think food rotting happened. I did look it up. I've got all the plagues somewhere in my head. Some kind of rot or something like that. And then there's the locusts in the fridge because there's a plague of locusts. Right. Scene 3, The Omen. The gang are sitting in the lounge, transfixed to the shopping channel, each steadily chowing down on an enormous pizza. From upstairs a blood-curdling racket can be heard, screaming and the sound of crashing furniture. No one is paying it any attention, except for Mark, who is clearly vexed by the matter. Mark. We should probably do something about this. What if he hurts himself? Paul. Look, whatever he's doing or going through, far be it from us to get involved. It's not our problem. Mark. Look, if he breaks anything, I'm not going to be the one to call the fucking landlord. Paul. Shotgun not, Mark. Shotgun! Luke. What? Oh, for fuck's sake. You know what? I'm going up there and I'm having a word. Luke runs upstairs, closely followed by Mark. Paul finishes his slice of pizza and slowly gets up to join them in his own good time. Upon reaching the top of the stairs, Mark and Luke are confronted with the sight of Tony ranting and raving like a madman, ineffectually shaking furniture, determined to break it but unable. Paul eventually makes his way up the stairs, confronted by a silently horrified Mark and Luke gazing upon the raving Tony. Paul. Well, that's peculiar. Scene end. And that's what I've changed. I've changed a great deal about scene 3. Like I thought the whole my flat screens bit was a little bit silly. I think, and this is kind of a. Not only does it avoid the sort of stupidness of the way the scene would be with that stuff in it, it also I think shows a little bit more about each personality and stuff like that. It shows like Luke's probably, while he's the simple one, he's still at the end of the day, in comparison to the other two, he's probably best suited to leading this friendship, I guess you could say. So, yeah, that's that scene. Yeah, so to cover that, flat screen, stupid, tried to change it so we get more of each character's personality and that kind of thing in there. Right, scene 4, we need to talk about Tony. The gang are again sitting together in the lounge. It is the following morning, and as such, everyone is still in the process of rebooting, each clasping a warm, reinvigorating beverage. Only Mark looks restless, seemingly not having slept a wink. He shakes through his black coffee and thinly rolled cigarette. Tony is still upstairs screaming. So we're kind of, this scene is kind of showing the effect on people and stuff like that, especially Mark, who's taking the brunt of it, if you will. He's the one who's kind of taking it to heart the most, while Paul and Luke seem to be letting it shrug off like water off a duck's back. So, yeah, I'll talk you through where this scene is and stuff like that. I'm not sure how much of this has changed, because I think in terms of dialogue writing, this is one of the ones I'm probably more comfortable with. Like, while it seems more like dialogue for dialogue's sake, it's stuff that brings across more of the characters and stuff like that, but doesn't necessarily take the story too far. I think kind of it's a much longer scene, but I think it's okay. I think it's, with the end, the important ending of the scene is that the seed is planted that maybe Tony's possessed. So, right, Luke. You okay, Mark? Did you go out last night or something? You're looking a little rough. Mark. Didn't go out. Stayed in. Couldn't sleep. Tony wouldn't shut up. Luke. Shit, glad I went out then. Mark looks ready to snap at Luke, but backs down, seeing it isn't worth the effort. Mark. This can't go on. We need to do something about Tony. Paul. Look, as much as I don't want to get involved, this can't go on. I mean, this is beginning to get a little bit weird. Like, so it's just paraphrased what Mark said, but he's using Mark's sort of state of vulnerability to just kind of make himself seem more intelligent, if you will. Right. Mark begins to crack, gaining energy and coherence as his rage builds. Beginning to get weird. Tony has been screaming for, 14 hours and 18 minutes. By beginning to get weird, do you mean starting to having an effect on Paul's little fucking bubble of self-obsessed bullshit? Paul, what the fuck did you just say to me? Luke, hey, don't start blaming this on Paul. It isn't his fault Tony's having a breakdown. Mark, breakdown? In what capacity is this a breakdown? I'm having a fucking breakdown. Tony's gone all out, off the fucking edge, batshit insane. Okay, I'll just pause there for a second. I've added in, like, as I mentioned before, I wanted to kind of get more of Paul's aggression across and things like that in his character. So, I've, put that across here, so there's that, what the fuck did you just say to me bit? So it's like, Paul's going to rise forward like that, like he's about to snap and respond with violence as opposed to words, which is Mark's forte. So it's kind of that sort of concept of when you can't respond with wit, you respond with violence, which is kind of a good example of Paul's character in a nutshell, I think. So I think that kind of works quite well. Luke. Is there no one we can call? I don't know, does he have family or something? And then Paul. Of course he has a family, you idiot. Who do you think we met when he... Oh, sorry, Paul. Not Mark. Of course he has a family, you idiot. Who do you think we met when he moved in? How do you not remember? His mum had those tits. Oh yeah, those tits. Luke and Paul sit for a moment, lost in thought, both with dumb smiles on their faces, seemingly forgetting the issue at hand. So what time are you in uni today, man? Mark. Oi, what the fuck are we going to do about this raving, possibly syphilitic nutcase living upstairs? I can't fucking deal with this anymore. I need to sleep. Luke. Mark. Maybe you should get some sleep. You seem a little on edge. Mark. On edge? I didn't sleep a fucking wink. What with Gene fucking Simmons last night? Fucking non-stop fucking screaming. Mark takes a long breath, clearly of a mind to continue his tirade, but unable in his current state to find the words to voice his displeasure. Luke. Who's Gene Simmons? Mark breaks down into tears. This scene I've changed, but I wanted to get more of... I wanted Luke and Paul to share a moment, essentially, like to put across that they're good buddies and stuff, and they're just stupid together. But so that's why I've got the tits bit in there, because it's crude, it's dumb, it's what we're like as students. We're just the kind of thing. It feels kind of more natural, and it's just puts across that they're both not hugely concerned about the matter at hand as well. And it gives a chance to transpose that with Mark quite clearly as well. Well, he's still hanging on to this like a pit bull. They're the ones who are kind of just quite happy to just start moving on and thinking about something else as if it isn't really an issue and nothing will get resolved. So right, after Mark breaks down into tears, Paul. So I guess it's down to us to sort this shit out with Tony. Now, does anyone have any ideas as to what's wrong with him? Any reason he's having this, let's call it an episode. I'm pretty sure we can rule out syphilis melting his brain. As far as I know, he hasn't been laid since he's been at uni. Luke. No idea then. Maybe a death in the family? Paul. Let's hope it wasn't the tits. It would be a damn shame losing a pair of fun bags like that. Luke and Paul once again drift off in thought, thankfully snapping out of it themselves this time. Wait, when was the last time you even spoke to Tony? Luke. Last month, I guess. Last month? Luke. Last month? Last month. I wanted to borrow some milk. He said no, prick. I just changed that from the Bills one because it's a bit funnier. Kind of, it's a really mundane thing, but he's taken it to heart. That's kind of the gag, isn't it? Paul. Prick. Luke. So when did you last speak to him? Paul counts out the days in his head. Shit. Probably about a month as well. How have we gone so long without speaking to someone who only lives upstairs? Luke. Because Tony's a prick. There is a long pause. Mark is still weeping and Tony is still screaming. Luke. Maybe he's possessed. Mark lifts up his head, regaining his composure. Mark. Maybe he's what? Luke. Possessed. It's where your mind gets overtaken by a demon. I know what possession means, you knob. I was giving you a chance to second guess and realise how fucking dumb that statement was. Possessed, that is the dumbest shit I have ever heard. Paul. No, as retarded as that sounds. Sorry. Luke nods in acceptance. But maybe he's onto something there. Like I mentioned the other day, he was screaming about demons. Luke. Not to mention the toilet water turning into blood. Mark. You can't be serious. Paul. And the locusts in the fridge. Luke. And all the washing up left in the sink. Mark. Shut the fuck up, Luke. That's a little gag. I'm not sure about the joke, but it's kind of a placeholder gag. Like, basically, the gag is that Luke is trying to blame something mundane that houses deal with, that it's clearly his fault, but he's trying to blame it on Tony's situation. And Tony screaming from upstairs suddenly becomes coherent. Mighty Hillspawn, rise forth upon the wings of evil. The gang pause, taking stock of what they've just heard. Maybe Tony is possessed. Now this is the well, that's done now. This will be the probably the final draft of the script. To be honest, like I can't afford to spend more than 5 weeks on it on a 2-month-long project. So I'll be, as I mentioned in a previous post, while I did spend technically 5 weeks on the script, I did get in. It's probably more like 3 weeks with 3 weeks purely on scripting, plus another 2 weeks in which I worked on this second draft. And reaching this final draft and doing little bits of pre-production and stuff like that, so things like the shot list and the storyboard and planning for the shoot and sourcing actors, blah 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 blah. But I'll do separate posts on each of those because it's just easier to for you all to view this in a nice chronological order. So how have I got it set out? 23. No, it doesn't matter. You'll see on the actual thing. But yeah, so next time I will be either doing a video blog post or just a purely visual post on the blog talking about what all my shots and stuff like that. So until next time.